Hey guys, welcome to another week of Power Rankings with the Ice Hockey Aussies. It's week 12 here, and to get us underway, we've got Jaden with pick 32.
Yeah, pretty easy pick. Don't really have to discuss too much. I got Chicago at pick number 32.
Yeah, no surprises there, really. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
they get a win, but yeah,
Yeah, they got to do a lot more than just a win to move from there, but I think it's a pretty lock solid 32 for now.
yeah,
I
and
don't
they're
know.
not angry about that at all, other than the
I wouldn't
fans
be.
maybe, but the management's not.
Mm.
Um, yeah, you want to do whatever you can to win that race for Bedard. Get as much for Kane and Tays. We've said it week in, week out. But yeah, other than that, it's gone the
All
way
right.
they wanted, I think.
Oh. All
All
right, on to
right,
your
on
pick.
to 31. Um, I've finally made a move in this position, and I've got the Columbus Blue Jackets dropping that one position,
Yeah,
just not getting it done.
I've done the same thing. Yeah, like you said, just not
Yeah,
getting it done. They've just been pretty mediocre for 4 or 5 weeks in a row now, or something like that. They get shut out by Ottawa, lose to Washington, then a shootout win against Carolina. So two tough games, but the shutout against Ottawa was very telling.
yeah, they've only got 2 wins in their last 8 games. They're not taking any of those games to overtime either to pick up those extra points. Um, it's not going to be a good season for them. They've got nothing but injuries. It's done, dusted. Finish as low as you can. Hope for the best position in the lottery. I don't think you can really hope for much more um,
Yeah, no,
at
I
this
agree.
point for them.
Alrighty, so pick number 30, moving up into that position is Anaheim. They just had a better week and kind of earned the little leapfrog on Columbus there. They get the OT win against the Sharks, but it was the win against Dallas that really made the leapfrog there over Columbus.
Yeah, I think they've been reasonably good for a few weeks, here and there. And by reasonably good, I mean they're getting more wins than they were, and they've racked up a few more regulation wins in the same time. But yeah, I mean they had a good win against Vegas last week, and then they beat Dallas this week as well. So two big wins against two big teams. Yeah, kind of had to move them out of that position. um, if they keep pulling off these upsets, they could move further up the ladder. But I think this the way they've played up to this point has been that bad that you can't move on them too quickly just off of the back of two good wins.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think some people will. I don't see how you could though. Like they got what 2 games played more than Columbus, but they're only 2 points above. Like that's where they are.
Mm.
Like that little trio
Yeah,
is pretty
exactly.
pretty hard trio at the bottom there.
Yeah, exactly. Um, all right. At P29, I've got the San Jose Sharks. They're not moving for me. They didn't really do too much this week. I didn't think they did. I know they lost to Anaheim, but I also think they've been doing more than Anaheim overall. Um, so yeah, I couldn't really move them down, and I certainly wasn't going to move them up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was that Anaheim loss, but also they lost in OT, so you could and they 41 shots to 29. So
Yeah,
it's an OT loss. You get a draw. But and then the only win for the week is Chicago, but that's just a guaranteed win. And then they lose to Boston,
at this
is
point, yeah,
which is pretty much a guaranteed
it's
loss.
yeah.
Especially on a back to
Interesting
back.
fact about Yeah, exactly. Interesting fact on the Anaheim San Jose sort of fixture this year. Sharks have lost 3 of the 4 games against them, but have taken 5 points from them. So besides the game they won, which they won in regulation, they actually lost all 3 of those games in OT. Um, so it just shows that, yep, they lost to the Ducks, but the Ducks had to take it to OT all 3 times against them.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I like what I'm seeing from the Sharks more than what I'm seeing from the Ducks. So couldn't
Yeah.
quite make that move just yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little too early. I think what they're 4 points ahead, um, where Anaheim's got one game in hand over them. But there's the goal differential as well. Like it's like they're basically double in the negative, which just shows how bad
Yeah,
Anaheim's
exactly.
been. But anyway, moving on to the next one at 28, I have the Arizona Coyotes moving down.
Ooh.
So moving down a
Yeah,
couple
I've got them.
positions.
I've got them in the same spot.
Yeah, it's just been pretty rough, honestly. Like they go 0-3. The big loss, honestly, they're all games they could have won with how they've been playing. Losing to Florida, then losing to Philly, and then losing to Chicago. So honestly, three big losses. Sure, the Chicago losses on a back to back, but I still think they should be winning that.
Yeah, and it's a bit disappointing too. It's hard to say disappointing because as an Arizona fan, you're kind of wanting them to lose and drop and drop and drop down those standings. But given the week they had last week, they beat Colorado, they beat Toronto, they take it to Tampa, and then they come into this week against. I know Florida, they're not performing that great, and we do think they are a better side than they are showing. But Philly and Chicago, with the way Arizona had been playing, like you'd think that Chicago win, that Chicago game was an easy win, and the Philly game, you don't expect them to get blown out 6-2. So that's where I think I was a bit disappointed there. I just didn't think they showed enough. Um, but hey, you know, if it helps him get Bedard, I don't think anyone from Arizona would be complaining.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, in P27, I've got the Montreal Canadiens. They
P20.
move up a position, I believe, for me. Yep.
Yeah, I got the Montreal Canadiens as well. And yeah, they move up. I don't.
Yeah, it's
I think it's just they leapfrogging Arizona and that's it. And it's not really on back of what they're doing. It's just Arizona having
nah.
a crashing week. I think Montreal has been pretty average all season, um, and they keep declining. They had a somewhat like a mediocre week with Nashville, New York, and St. Louis, but they only bring out two
Mhm.
points out of the six. So yeah, they are where they are.
Yeah, they get a win against St. Louis, which probably carried them above Arizona, just off the back of Chicago beating Arizona and then Montreal getting that win. I think if they hadn't won today, I probably wouldn't have made that swap. But yeah,
No, exactly. If Arizona went 1-3, 1 out of 3, then yeah, I wouldn't have put Montreal above. But they had a bad week, so they get the leapfrog. But they're still where they want to be to get that pick.
exactly.
Alrighty. On to number 26. 26, I have team moving up just a little bit to Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah. Look at that. How are we going for what's that, six in a row now?
7.
7 in a row now. Yeah, geez. Look at that. How's that? We're on song this week. I wonder how long we can keep this up.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
they only
mean,
move up one. They
good
had
week.
a really easy week with Anaheim and Arizona, but they win them comfortably.
Hmm.
And I think they're playing a little bit better, but it's hard to gauge because of how easy the opponents were. So I'll keen to see what they do next week. But yeah, only one position for now.
Yeah, and that's it, right? Like you look at their last 4 games: Arizona, Anaheim, LA Kings, and San Jose Sharks. So the Kings are the best of that. And yep, the Kings are playing really well, so that is a good win. You have to give them that. But Anaheim's, scraping the bottom and barrel. Arizona's similar, and San Jose the same thing. So, good wins obviously for them, but they're getting the W, so that is one thing. But I just don't think it's enough to put them any further. And it would be interesting to see what happens next week because they come up against some really tough opponents. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think they want to do good though. Interesting that Kevin Hayes goes to All Star, but with all the things going on there, I thought that'd be a little bit interesting on how that turns out.
yeah, I thought it would have been Travis Konechny, but
Yeah.
personally, but it is what it is. That's what the fans vote. I think there was probably a bit of tongue in cheek on that. Um, and they voted for him on purpose just to shove it up torts. But it is what it is. All
Yep.
right, moving on to 25. I've got dropping a couple of spots this week. The very inconsistent Vancouver Canucks.
Well, look at us go. That's where I've got Vancouver as well. They only moved down,
Oh,
believe one for me this
that's
week.
got to be a ice hockey Aussie record, I reckon.
It's looking good.
Yeah, 8 straight. I don't think we've ever been on this on song.
Mm. But yeah, Vancouver didn't have a bad week. Two somewhat tough kit teams. They lose to New York pretty comfortably, and then they beat the Avs, which is kind of interesting. I think those results should be inversed, really. But they, yeah, they
Yeah,
get 2 out of 4, 2 out of 4 points. It's you know it's hard to gauge a team on 2 games.
yeah.
But yeah, move down one. It's not really a big move.
Nah, I think it was more on what the teams above them did this week compared to them. So, they moved down two for me, but it wasn't really off of their performance. It was more off of the teams above them. Yeah, have just done more.
Already, oh, I think believe it's
Yeah.
my pick at 24. Then, all right,
Yep.
let's see, keep the streak going. I have team moving just above Vancouver, and it's Florida Panthers.
Oh, no.
Ruined. It's all ruined.
Yeah, ruined. And it's just, I think this one's just because of where I had them last week compared to the team that's probably your next pick. So yeah, I've got them at 23. Breaks the streak, but
Breaks the streak.
yeah,
I disagree with it. Horrible move by you. Even though it's one position.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, like looking at their week, it's they go 2 out of 3. They lose the Rangers, beat the beat the Arizona, and then they beat Detroit. So they kind of get the results that you're expecting. There's nothing
yeah.
flashy, though they did get outshot pretty significantly against Detroit. And I think that's more on Detroit. I feel like Detroit, when they lose, it's more on them than a team out beating them. Um, so not much to gauge on that week, honestly.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one. The Arizona win. If they don't win that, you're probably dropping them.
Mm,
Because it's a game that they win, but they don't get any praise for winning it because it's the game they should win. Um, they lose to the Rangers. They did put up a reasonably good effort against the Rangers. I think, yeah, they sort of just probably got a little bit outclassed, and you're coming up against. I think Shesterkin was in. No, Halak was in that. So okay, yeah, I thought it was Shesterkin shining, but Halak actually stood on his head that game. I watched a little bit of it, and so I don't know why I thought it was Shesterkin, not Halak. But yeah, Halak made some good saves in that game, which helped them. But I don't know where the Florida Panthers are at the moment. They don't seem to be beating good teams, but they're getting the wins against the teams that they should beat.
yeah,
So
no, they need a
it's going to be
coaching
interesting.
change. I think I could call that by now. I think it should have been done probably a few weeks ago. Is that they need a coaching
Yeah.
change? Um, but I don't know if you want to even do it at this point. Like, do you just fold the season now? I don't know.
Do they tank for Bedard?
Yeah, it's go get Kachuk and then you tank for Bedard. It's quite interesting, but
Oh well, yeah. I mean,
they're not out of the
would be
run.
crazy if that
But
happened.
they need to make the call now. It's now or never. Um, so if I don't see it in the next week or so, I'd say they're pretty much flat going to miss the playoffs. That's my big call.
Well, yeah. I
And
mean, they're sitting 40. They're sitting at 500, basically halfway through the season. They need 56 points in their next 42 games.
mm,
They're a team that can do it, but that's a big if. And this season, the way that the East is, you might need more than 96 points. So, like, I don't know. It's the longer they take to get going, the harder it's going to be, and the less likely I see them turning their season around.
Yeah, no, exactly. Alrighty, on to your pick, which will be
Right.
my next pick.
Yep. Yeah. I'm assuming it'd be your next pick. Yeah. I've got these guys move up one position. They had a reasonably good week as well, but I definitely need to see more from them because we know how quickly they can bounce back. He knows who I'm going with. St. Louis Blues.
Just does
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Nah, it was pretty it's pretty easy call that. Yeah, they had a good week. They won two of their three. They beat the Devils, which I think they got outplayed, but they just played a bit smarter than the Devils. They took their opportunities and they defended really tightly. So they played a counter-attacking sort of game. Let the Devils do what they do, and then just pounced. Um, and
yeah.
yeah,
And then they
so
get a shootout
that
win
was a
against Toronto, which was good as well. It was a very high scoring game, um, which you don't like to see defensively, but you know
no,
they 6-5, and then they lose to Canadians, so they're conceding a lot of goals. I think it was like 13 goals in 3 games. It's too many goals to concede, but then
for sure.
that's my worry with them. So they stay flat for me. They move up one for you, but you were definitely lower on them last week.
Yeah, I had them one lower than you. I still have them one lower than you, but I I don't know what to make of it. They get two big wins against two good teams in Toronto and New Jersey, and then they lose to Montreal.
Hmm.
So it's a tough one. And I'm not similar to Florida. I don't quite know where they are. And the closer and closer it gets, especially to the deadline, they need to make choices because they've got two big players that would probably net them good returns if they traded them out. But there's rumors that they want to keep at least one of them. But yeah, they're getting close, and they've got to make that decision because you don't want to lose both of those players for nothing.
Mm. Alrighty, on to my pick number 22. I have a team moving down a couple. It's the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, yeah, back on track here. Look at that. Just two teams flipped, and then we're straight back to it.
Yeah, pretty bad week for the Detroit. 0 out of 3. Losing pretty comfortably against New Jersey. They lose, though they should have probably taken it to with the Florida game, and then they lose on a back-to-back against Toronto, which is a hard game. So very bad week, but I don't think I could punish them any further just because how the other teams below them have been. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think it's a solid 22 at the moment, and I'll have to see if they bounce back next week as they seem to be a yo-yo team, nice roller coaster. Though they've been,
The
from what I'm seeing on ice, it looks pretty bad though too.
Yeah. I mean, they've only got three wins in their last 13 games as well. So um, it is concerning considering that people were pegging them for a cheeky wild card spot. Although that is very difficult in the East this year, um, they are sort of falling away a bit. But at the same time, like even the New Jersey game, yeah, they got blown away 5-1, but they still had a lot of chances. It was a very, very good goaltending performance from Vanacek. Um, I didn't actually see the game today against Toronto, so I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but they were reasonably good against Florida as well. Um, Again, probably just more on their goaltender not sort of showing up, or defense not sort of being there to help either. But yeah, at some point you've got to ask questions, and they've got some big things going on there with the Dylan Larkin situation. Will he stay or will he go? Um, so yeah, they've got some big things happening there at the moment, and they're gonna have to make some decisions on a few players in the coming month or so because yeah, they've got a lot of UFAs, and a team like them, they don't want to. I wouldn't want to sacrifice losing them for nothing to try and push for a wild card spot that we might not get.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Ready? You're
Right.
21.
Going at 21, I got these guys moving up a position. Um, they potentially would have moved up another one before. They'd only conceded one goal before today, and they end up conceding nine for the week. I got the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, it's where I've gotten them too, so still on track.
Yeah, just they got blown out of the water today. Like that was, I mean, a very entertaining game to watch, but 8 goals after you've conceded one in the last two games you played. It's yeah, interesting to say the least. But
Yeah, they had a good win against Buffalo, but then they get the good nice shutout win against Columbus. You're expecting that, but yeah, then the Seattle game, it's just not acceptable really to concede 8. So
yeah,
yeah, that's why they only move up one, even though that was their bad game. But they get two out of 3 wins. So yeah, it's hard with that team, isn't it? They've kind of been in this spot all season, really. Like they play good, don't get the result, and then they play bad and they get destroyed. So it's yeah, only
right.
moving one. I would like to see them do next week and not get blown out and do that same type of record, because I think the Buffalo game was a good win. But then you go and do the
Yeah,
Seattle game.
yeah, and the thing is, you got to look at the week before as well. They beat Boston, they beat Washington. Yep, they were in extra time. Yep, sure, no worries. It went to OT and shootout, but they still beat two really good teams. But it's just that blowout against Seattle. Like you go, "Oh, he's showing so much potential," and then they get wiped, and all those questions come flooding back. Oh, how's their defense? Is it going to hold up? Do they have a decent enough goaltending duo? Yeah, I still think they're a little bit away. I think they thought they were going to be in a wild card contention spot this year, but I do still think they need a few more pieces, and probably next year to the year after might be when they finally start competing.
Mm. Alrighty, on to my number 20, a team I want to move down even further. It's only just gone down 2 positions for me this week. It's the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, they don't move at all for me, but yeah, I had them down at 20 a lot sooner than you did because I just I don't
Yeah,
think they're good.
no, they're looking very mediocre. Relying a lot on power play goals. It's really just a two-man show. Like there's one line really, and that's the power play line. They win 1 out of 3 games this week. They do get the OT loss against Colorado, and they win against New York, but they get destroyed. Not destroyed, but beaten by Seattle. It's Yeah, look, it's not good. Honestly, you got probably two of the best players in the league, and this is what you're doing. Um, Honestly, I'd be hitting the panic button. I don't know what type of trade you make because it's hard to make some trades with that salary cap and it lacks a nurse on the back line there, but they have to make drastic changes, I think. I think it's not a little retool at this point. It's got to be something drastic.
Look, I agree with you. I think if it's not if it's not their top four goal scorers, it's just not happening. Like you look at you look at their stats. You got McDavid 33, Leon Draisaitl 22, Zach Hyman 20, and Brian Nugent Hopkins 19. Four goal scorers, and then your next best is six with Darnell Nurse.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
that,
it's
that's
not
your
just that.
first
Like
line power play. That's all your first line power play.
exactly, exactly. That was where I was about to go with it. Like you look at Connor McDavid only has I think it's 19 even strength goals out of his 33. Um, Leon Draisaitl has something like eight even strength goals out of his 22. Um, yeah, like it's just if it's not happening on the power play for them, it's not happening. Like you watch today's game, they got two power play goals. Which don't get me wrong, when you've got a deadly power play and you're capitalizing on it, that's fantastic. That goes a long way. because that's what you want. You want your team to take advantage of that situation, but they just don't take advantage anywhere else. They don't. They can't score 5-on-5 very well, and their defense is atrocious. They've got a reasonably good goaltender, but
Mm,
they've got nothing in front of him. And yeah, like you think about it, you get a defense
yep.
with the scoring power they have, they could go a lot further, but with the defense they've got, I just can't see them doing it.
I'd make the call. I'll make a big call right here. If I took over as Edmonton as the GM, I would trade McDavid. I
Oh,
I would trade McDavid because the salary just hurts too much. I think you can make
mhm.
a big steal for it because I don't think with his salary, with how long it's going to take for the salary cap to move, that he's really going to be in a playoff cup contending team, like a full cup contending team because of his salary cap. He does so many points, but it still doesn't equate to it. Just you get fair bank really for how much his salary cap he eats up. Um,
Well, yeah, you do have to ask the question, right? He's 12.5 mil, and yeah, okay, he's got 76 points on the season. Dreisaitl's got 62. They're your two top point scorers in the league. Yeah, you're only in a wild card spot because the teams below you haven't played all their games. Like you,
yeah,
you realistically wouldn't be in a playoff spot right now if everyone had played even games.
but I just think the haul you
So
could get for
yeah,
McDavid rebuilds your franchise in a way that you could set up for playoffs and whatnot next year onwards. Um, and I
yeah.
know it's a big call and blah blah blah, but that's what I would do honestly.
I I definitely think you got a great point there, and I think Toronto's probably a similar team that's got to look at doing something similar in getting rid of that massive one of those massive contracts that they've got. Because I think $12+ million for a player is just too much. Connor McDavid or no Connor McDavid, I just don't think it's gonna win you a cup.
Mm.
Um, you need you need other pieces around him, and I think that Darnell Nurse contract was not the defenseman that you needed to be signing for that type of money.
No,
But
but some
anyway,
teams still survive on a bad contract, but they
yeah,
can't because of McDavid's contract. But that's all I'll say. On
yes.
to your 19.
Yeah, we'll move on. We could be here for hours otherwise. All right, at 19, we've got a team winning all their games this week, moving up a couple of spots, but I'm not getting too hot on them yet because of what they did to me last time they were on a run. I got the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, I've got Nashville at 19 as well. I, they win all
Mm.
three games, but the teams above them, I couldn't fully justify having above.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why it was a solid 19 for me. I couldn't have them go any higher, but I think they're definitely over the Oilers. So it was pretty straightforward. It's 19 for me this week.
Yep. Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I not too much else to say on it other than, if you want to keep moving Nashville, don't do what you did to us last time because last time you went on a run, you then went on a run the opposite direction. So,
Yeah. The one
um,
thing to point out was their
yeah,
their victory against Washington on a back to back. I think that's
yeah.
huge. That's a very big win. Washington was
Especially on a back-to-back from Carolina. Like,
yeah. I know
you're not just
yeah.
playing a mediocre side, you're coming up against one of the best and probably toughest sides to play against that put up 67 shots against you
Mm,
and you still won, and then you back it up against Washington. Yeah, like
yeah.
incredible.
To be fair, Washington was also on a back to back, but it was against Columbus. So yeah, that's really all I've got to say for Nashville. We'll see if they can do it next week. Alrighty,
Yeah.
on to pick number 18. I have a team moving up just one position. It's the Calgary Flames.
Oh, yeah, me too. Calgary. Calgary at 18.
Yeah, they get one out of two wins this week. They beat the Islanders. They lose to the Jets. It's a pretty tough week, honestly. Um, they win the game that you'd expect them to probably win out of the two, and that's the Islanders game. So there's not too much movement there. But they've just been slowly creeping up. Honestly, I feel like they've been just edging around that, just outside the 16 for the last few weeks. I don't think it's going to
Yep.
take too much for them to spring forward into it if they get things going.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think, they could be in the top 16 as soon as next week if, if they have a good week. I mean, they've got winnable games, Chicago, St. Louis twice, and then Dallas. So, if they get three of those four, and depending on what teams above them do, they could definitely um, climb into the top 16. They dropped one for me, but that's more off the back of a team I had in front of below them last week. Um, having a really good week. So they're not dropping based off their performance. I think their performances have still been reasonably good. They took it to Winnipeg. They get a good win against New York. But yeah, for me, it was just I couldn't really move them up above anyone, but I had to move them below this team that's gone above them. So
Yep.
yeah,
Alrighty, your pick. Just outside the
all
top
right,
16.
yeah, outside the top 16. I don't think these guys have been outside the top 16 in a long time, if ever. Just having a look at it. Yes, first week. First week we did this, they were outside the top 16 and haven't been outside since, but they've they've been quietly struggling, but they're struggling, and it's the New York Islanders.
Yeah, I've done the same. So, like you said, first week we had them out of the top 16. Every other week it's been in the top 16. While in the top 16, I think the lowest was 15. They were 13 last week. They dropped four. Like you said, they've been struggling. They definitely don't look like the Islanders at the start of the season. They lose to probably what do you would call it, a hot Kraken. Uh,
Yeah.
then they get the win against
Well,
Vancouver, lose to Edmonton, which I think is a big loss, and then they lose to Flames on a back-to-back, um,
yeah.
4-1. So
ho-
not a good week. I think pretty much all those games maybe decides Kraken. Even the Kraken, they should probably be taking
Nah,
to it and winning.
honestly, the thing about the Kraken one is they started the Kraken's run.
Yeah, I know.
Before that, the Kraken were terrible.
I know.
So yeah, they started what we saw this week from the Kraken. So yeah, like you could probably say they should have won that game. Um, and they should have probably won a couple others. Edmonton haven't been playing that well. Calgary up and down. Like these are teams below you in the standings realistically that you should be beating and you're not. So yeah, in the East, it's cause
Well,
for concern,
well,
that's for sure.
that's the issue. They're not feeding off the West, so when they come against the East, which has been very strong, they're probably going to lose. Go 500 or something, and that's when you don't make the playoffs. So, and I don't think
Yeah.
they've looked that great on ice either. So, yeah, just out of top 16. Alrighty,
Yep.
I guess we can start off the top 16 now. A team that almost fell out of it for me, moving down a couple, is the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, yeah, I've got them there as well. Funny story, they were outside the top 16 until they won today. So that win today just just helped get them back in there.
Yeah,
But yeah, they were definitely on the brink. It
yeah,
hasn't been good for them.
yeah. They lose to Vegas 3-2, lose to Vancouver 4-2, then they get an OT win against Edmonton 3-2, though they had 46 shots. It's yeah, they've been on a slight decline, honestly, over the last
Yeah,
couple of
five
weeks.
straight before today.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
slight decline, almost outside the top 16. It's not going to take if they keep this slide, they'll definitely be out next week.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Especially because, they're coming up against Florida, Chicago, and Ottawa. And realistically, I know Florida and Ottawa are tough teams to play. But they should, though, they've got to beat Chicago, and they should be winning at least one of those other games. So if they don't come out of that week with at least 4 points, and New York, Calgary, Nashville, those sort of teams have good weeks. Yeah, Colorado definitely on the decline. I know they're obviously struggling a little bit. They've got a few players out and all the rest of that, but yeah, you don't want to fall too far. I'm
Yeah,
not too concerned about them at the moment, but
no, they're still in the
obviously as
hunt.
the season goes,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly, and that's all they need to be until they get their players back.
yeah. All right, you're 15.
All right, my 15. Um, team was in the top five a couple of weeks ago, and they've just fallen off the absolute face of the earth. We saw that earlier in the season. Um, Yo-yo team for sure, and I don't mind seeing them down there. It's the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah. Oh, look, same on them last week, and they moved down the same this week. I got them moving down to 15 as well, -4. And yeah, it's hard to actually make what this team is. They look like a Stanley Cup winning team, and then they just look
Yes,
look like an outside wildcard spot team. It's
they look like cool. Pull the plug and start the rebuild. I
mm,
know they had two tough games this week, but yeah, they're on a six-game slide. Um, they've lost seven of their last eight,
mm.
and yeah, it's
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
it's rough.
two tough games. Boston, Vegas. They brought it both games, which I
Yeah,
liked. It's just that they're on that slide, and I think the other teams below them didn't have that slide and are on runs, so that's why they get leapfrogged. I could see them definitely going back to 11 or something if they switched around next week, but they have to switch it around. Probably have to go and win all their games next week.
yeah. Look, the good thing is that they're coming. They're coming into some of the lower teams. They've still got some tough opponents to come up. Winnipeg and Carolina on the back-to-back next week. Um, New Jersey and Washington in a few weeks' time. But they've got the teams like Arizona, Anaheim, San Jose, Ottawa, Florida. Like those are the teams that they should be taking wins off of, and then it's just what can they take off of those teams above them. Um, yeah, so I still think they're good, and like when you watch them on ice, they do look really good. It's just a question of what goes wrong when they go into these slides, and why can't they get out of it quickly? Why
Yeah.
why does it take so long for them to get out of a 7 game, 8 game slump?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but I still think they've got it in them. They've still got a fantastic side. Um,
Alrighty. On to pick number 14 for me. Moving up two positions, I got the Buffalo Sabres.
yeah, it changes up a little bit here for me. I'm real high on these guys. Not hugely higher than you, but I've got them at 12.
Yeah, so you're very much higher than me on them. Um, I think they're playing well. They're scoring well. It's exciting hockey and everything, but I think they're kind of been like Pittsburgh in a sense of where they're good, and then they're not good, then they're good, then they're not good. Um, they lose to Ottawa, then they get an OT win against the Caps. Then they get an OT win against Minnesota. The issue is with the Caps and the Minnesota game is they're very high scoring games.
Yeah,
And that's my concern with them. And they've proven that they can score, but I yet to see them not have a high scoring game against them. Five, 4 goals, and then three. So what's that? 12 goals and averaging 3 goals a game, 4 goals a game. It's
yeah,
I think that's my concern with them.
yeah, and I definitely get see that, and I agree with that to an extent. I think that's one area they can definitely improve on is defensively. But God, can they score, and God, do they look good on ice? It's fun to watch. And I think they've got a lot of talent. It's just, yeah, they probably need a really good defensive defenseman to come in and sort of secure that D line, that blue line. But look, at the end of the day, they're getting the results now. We said at the start of the year the biggest issue with them when they went on that 8, 9 game losing streak that they had, they weren't playing bad hockey. They just weren't getting results, and they're getting results now. So I could see them moving up higher, and I could actually see them being that wild card contender this year.
Oh yeah, definitely. But they have to be consistent and some do something before the trade deadline, I guess, and shore up that D line because you can't leak that many goals once you start versing the top end teams and be consistent. So yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, on to your
yeah,
pick number
exactly.
14.
All right, at P14, I've got. I was worried. I was worried that the dream was over. And that the slide was going to continue, but they've bounced back, and have they bounced back in wonderful fashion, especially with today's win, 8 massive goals. Seattle Kraken.
Okay, so I guess we're just inverted. I'm a bit higher on Seattle than you are. Um, I've got them at 12th, and you got Buffalo at 12. So we're just inverted.
Yeah, yeah. I don't get me wrong.
Oh, well, they still
I
both move up five
rate
positions.
Seattle. Yeah, exactly. I still rate Seattle. I just think, this week was good, and that's why I've moved them back up 5 positions. I wouldn't usually move a team that I've dropped probably 4, 5, 6 positions the week before, up 5 positions the next week. But it was a good week. Like, they beat the Islanders 4-1, Toronto 5-1, Edmonton 5-2, and then Ottawa 8-4. They packed on the goals. They were phenomenal this week. It was so entertaining to watch. But I do still have that reservation. Like, they were pretty bad over the month of December. Um they only had the 4 wins for the entire month, and they won two, three, four, five, just eight losses. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
I hope they're back, because I really want to see them make the playoffs. But
they're
yeah,
sitting
I want to
ninth in
see
the
them do it again.
standings in point percentage, which is fascinating. And that's how good their early run was as well. And now this
Hmm.
second run. So they're definitely in that upper echelons, I think. But I just need to be more consistent. I think they're actually showing that now. Uh, Whereas, like you compare to Buffalo, I think what they're 6 points behind. With Buffalo has one game in hand. So that's why I'm just
Yeah,
less high on Buffalo at the moment.
yeah. My biggest concern with Seattle is their goaltending. I think
Oh yeah,
I'm not convinced Martin Jones is. I mean, his record's 18-5-3, so it's but hear me out here. 18-5-3, 0.891 save percentage.
yeah.
So
But
I feel like
yeah, Seattle
it's
play that
on their
game where they don't
defense.
concede shots, though. Yeah, that's the thing.
That's what I mean. Like, it's their defense. If their defense gets ripped to shreds and they just packing on the shots, Seattle are screwed, because they don't have the goaltending to hold them up. So I feel like their defense is definitely shadowing some poor goaltending. It's probably the opposite of teams like Winnipeg, where Hellebuck's shadowing an absolute terrible defense. But yeah, that is my concern for them. But yeah, I really do hope they keep it going, because I want to see him in the playoffs.
I'm
I
sure
think it'd be great.
I'm sure they're knocking at the door at a team like New Jersey for like a Mackenzie Blackwood or a Kira Schmid or something. A team with
Mm,
three goalies that one could probably be poached away. Um,
yep.
Alrighty, is it my pick now? I believe it's pick number 13 for me.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, it is another team that's it's been like kind of a hidden gem. I don't know. They don't play too great, but they keep trucking along, and they're pretty good in the standing. It's
Here we
the
go.
LA Kings.
I didn't even have to wait for that. I knew
Hmm.
that was coming. Yeah, you've kind of got to move them up, don't you? They had massive wins this week. Um, I think we've said it a few times on this, is their game style is weird. It's interesting. I'm not sure either of us really rate it. Worried about their defense, their goaltending situation. But they're winning.
Yeah,
They play 3 tough teams, and they get 4 points.
yeah. Well, that's all you need really. Is to get the points,
Hmm.
and yeah, beating Dallas. You lose to Boston, but then you beat Vegas. Honestly, you could make an argument that they probably could have lost all three of those games. That's what's probably expected from LA, but they take out with two. I think they're kind of being underrated by pretty much everyone in the league, really, because it just doesn't look pretty, but it gets the job done.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah, I have to agree with you. They win both games against Vegas. 4-2 last week, 5-1 this week. They beat, like, just I know Colorado's injured and all the rest of it, but they've beaten Vegas, Colorado, Dallas, and Vegas again, with their only losses coming against Boston, who are the best team in the league, and then a bad game against the Philadelphia side that was hot. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't been hot on them all year. I've been waiting for them to just plummet, but it's not happening, and they're getting the wins. So you've kind of got to give them credit. You've got to move them up the table. They
Mm.
could be top 10. I don't think their game style's top 10, but they very well could be with
No,
the way they're
they're
going.
kind of the same balance where with Washington, so you could probably put them up all the way up to Washington, I would say.
Hmm.
But then probably from 13 to wherever Washington is, that's where I would say they are. You can make an argument for, but it's just their game style. That's why, as we can see, that Washington, for both of us, is above them at the moment. It's just game style, how they look.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
exactly. But hey, like we said, you get results. That's all that matters. You can say that they have more. They've played more games than most teams. They're 23-20 if you just win loss sort of records. So there are some questions around it, but hey, yeah, ride the hot hand, and it's going to be a lot easier to make the playoffs in the Pacific than it is anywhere else in the league. So yeah, take advantage of that. Why not?
mm. Alrighty, so just
All
outside the
right,
top 10, number 11.
just outside the top 10. I went. I have moved these guys down a bit, but it's not all on how they played. They had a bad week. I know I was a lot higher on them last week than you, but yeah, I've got the Washington Capitals dropping down to number 11.
Yeah, that's where I have Washington as well. I told you, you called it too early. You just got to listen to Jaden, people. It's
Just listen to Jaden, you reckon? Yeah.
um,
I don't know. I still rate them. I still think
oh,
they're
I
playing
still do
some
too.
good hockey.
Yeah.
Um, I think they've probably just had a bit of a down week, but yeah, it's just the teams around them have done so much more than them, and I couldn't justify keeping them at
Mm.
6
It's
where I had
it's
them. So
interesting though because like they get an OT loss against Buffalo. Like it's an OT. It's basically a draw. They win Columbus, which you're expecting, and then they lose
mhm.
3-2. So it's not even a big loss, and they outshot Nashville. And you could even
And they
argue,
lose late.
yeah,
They lose late.
and it was on a back to back. I know Nashville was also on a back to back, but you could almost argue that Nashville is on a little hot streak now as well. Like they're not the team that
Yeah,
was there before. So
yeah,
yeah, it's hard to move them down. That's why I've only got them moving down two. I think it's
yeah,
and that's why I've said that LA is probably in between the Washington and down. I think that's a pretty close trio there. Um,
y-
and just outside the
yeah.
top 10, you definitely were higher on them last week at six, moving five.
I think next week's a big one for them because they've got two teams over 3 games that they've got to win. Columbus, Philly, and Philly. So um, if they win all three of them, depending on what other teams do, they could be back in the top 10.
Mm,
If they lose one or two of those games, or even all three, they could definitely creep a lot lower with teams like Buffalo, Los Angeles, Seattle, sort of all creeping around. But it just shows you that this sort of the rankings are really tightening.
mm.
Um,
That's what you want to see in
so
a
yeah,
league, which is good.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Alrighty, so starting with the top 10, it's a team that was just outside the top 10 last week, moving up to its New York Rangers.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of feel like they're too low. I've got them there as well, but I really do. I feel like they're too low.
Well, they're what? Like
Um,
they're 10th in point percentage. So we actually have them spot on with the standings at the moment. They've been playing good. They're getting a lot of
mhm,
OT losses, which means they're in the games. And they had a
yep,
really good week this week, going 3 out of 4. And the losing game was an OT loss against New Jersey. And they beat, 5-3, 5-3 from Florida and Carolina, and then 4-1 against Montreal. So they've kind of been somewhat decisive as well. Um,
mhm,
and then it was a really tough, hard game against New Jersey both ways. And then
mhm.
they get basically a draw out of it. So, like you said, they could be higher.
Yeah, I rate them. I've rated them all year. I had some concerns around some of the players that they obviously lost a couple of players, brought some players in. Could Shesterkin do what he did last season? So I had my concerns, but I still think they've got the team to sort of at least go back to a conference final if they keep it up. I think the big question mark is still, can Shesterkin stand on his head like he did last year?
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
I think for me that like for a lot of the weeks they were teetering on the top 16, just being in it or outside of it. But
Hmm.
last like 3 4 weeks, they've really shown themselves to be that top 10 team.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Um, Another team. I know a lot of people have these guys a lot higher. Um, But yeah, for me, I did have them looking a little bit higher this week until they got absolutely destroyed today. And it sort of dragged them back down a little bit. But yeah, it's Vegas Golden Knights at 9.
Oh, okay. I have them at 6.
You were much higher on them last week.
Yep.
I get it, and I get that at the standings they're third overall, third in points percentage, or fourth in points percentage. Sorry, I'm still not convinced about them. Um, I do have my worries. I thought, you know, they started the week good against Colorado and then beat Pittsburgh, but at the same time, Colorado's o- on the slide. They've got nothing but injuries. Pittsburgh um, are on an absolute slide as well. So don't get me wrong, two good wins against two teams and that's why I did have them moving up, because I did say last week this is their real test when they come up against these tougher teams. But then they lose to LA Kings in a tremendous fashion. Um,
Yeah, but it wasn't a high shooting game. I just think it was just leaky goals. But I think like I said earlier, I think people are sleeping on LA. I think LA
mhm.
is a really high rated team. So I don't know it's a 5-1 loss, but I don't downrate it as hard as like I would have at the earliest start of the season with LA. I think it's
Yeah,
and I think it's more credit to LA there.
yeah. No, that's fair. And yeah, like I said, I could see Vegas moving up. I get the argument for a top five position or where you have them at 6. It's just personally, this is where I've got them sitting.
Yeah, no. Leave a comment below if you agree or disagree with one of us. That'd be good. Alrighty. All right. Now my number 9 then. Team. It's not really doing too much more. It's just moving up one. It's the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, yeah, they're only one spot above for me.
Yeah.
Um,
They have a really
they
good.
move up one.
They have a really good week, winning 2 out of 2 games against Calgary and Tampa Bay. Pretty good
Hmm.
wins. Beating Tampa. And only getting to move up one position. I just think it's just how tight that top 10 is. I know they're
Yeah,
like, I think it's 6 in point percentage in the standings, but it honestly, the top 10, probably even to like 11 or so, it's very tight.
yeah.
I think it's only really Boston and whatnot that are still out out in their own little zone at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I think Boston, I think are in a league of their own. Carolina was teetering around that and obviously started. I had them at number one last week. Could still have them at number one this week, but Boston and Carolina, and then it starts to sort of fade out after that. Um, but yeah, you look at from third to yeah, probably 11 even. They could, one week if they smash teams, they could be third, fourth in the standings if
Mm,
it's that tight at the moment. And I find it really hard to sort of look at how some of these teams are playing, because even when they lose, some of these teams aren't looking bad in their losses. They're actually the better team, but they're not getting the result. So it's hard to sort of punish some teams that are playing really good hockey, um,
yeah,
but they did not go two and one
yeah,
in the week.
a few top teams had bad weeks this week that we'll get onto, but and I think that's I needed to see one more week. I think after this week, if same thing happens as this week, I think the Jets could go all the way to the top five easily. Just how close it is, but I got to give 'em one more week, I reckon.
for
Um,
sure.
Already, you're number 7.
All right, number 7. These guys could have made some arguments to drop them even further with the team they lost to, but um, I've got the Dallas Stars dropping 2 positions after losing 2-0 to the Anaheim Ducks.
All right, I've got them at number 7, moving down to.
Mm, Nice, yeah. Both had them at 5 last week, and now they dropped to 7. Disappointing because they've done this to us every time, every damn time, man.
Oh, I called it.
We get them
I
in
knew,
the top 5.
I called it.
We get them in the top 5, and then they lose. Then they
Yeah,
just and like the loss against the Kings, it's not bad. I
I
don't
don't
mind
think it's
that.
a bad loss, but
Um,
and they do have to play
no,
a back to
me
back,
either.
and they have to play a back
But
to back.
it's Anaheim.
Yep.
It's Anaheim, and you get shut out. You've got you've got Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, Tyler Sequin, Jamie. You could just name them, and you can't put a single goal past the Ducks. But I just, yeah, I don't know. That's why they dropped 2 for me. I didn't punish them for the Kings loss because of how well the Kings have been playing. But that Ducks game, I don't care that it's a back to back or whatever. They shouldn't be losing that game. Yeah,
Mm.
just not for me.
No, I agree. Um, Alrighty. On to my pick 8. It's the Minnesota Wild. They don't move for me.
Oh, yeah. See, these guys they start off my top 5. Um, I've got them at 5. I think you might be sleeping on them a bit, but you know what? I could be
I
wrong.
I don't think I
Um,
am. Like I know they beat Tampa, and then they get an OT loss today against Buffalo, but I just think their start to the season warrants where they are. I think what 3, 6, 9. Well, they're 11th in the points percentage. Sure,
yeah.
they're playing good now, but they got more to climb, And I know I think Dallas have been more consistent throughout the season. I think they've been
hmm
in the top 10 for pretty much the majority of this season. Yeah, Dallas has not been out the top 10 all season, so I can't warrant
hmm
that they go above. And yeah, so I have to see more. They've got to
No, that's
climb back
fine.
this
And
bad start.
yeah, and I think the next week or 2 is going to be a big telling point because they've got some really winnable games. But they've also got a couple of games in there against some tough opponents in the East. So, they come up against the Rangers, Washington, Carolina, Tampa Bay, all in the next 3 weeks. So, depending on how these next few weeks go, I could see them being higher than I've got them, or I could see them being, no lower than this because I think these next 10 games, that I could see them winning at least 7 of them.
Yeah,
So,
but my point, if they drop off hard because of how bad their start was. So they're
mhm.
either going to be for you top 5, or they're probably going to be outside the top 10. Like that's pretty much where they're going to be at. But yeah. Anyway, on to your number 6.
Interesting. My number 6. This is a team that had a bit of a slide. But they've been really good all year. But they're not playing bad hockey. That's the biggest thing for me. They're not playing bad hockey. They just weren't getting the results. They were dominating teams and losing. Um, they did it again this week. They dominated a team and lost. I've got the New Jersey Devils at 6. Um, but they played so well. They were unlucky not to get more from the Carolina game. They never should have lost to St. Louis the way they played. Like I said earlier, St. Louis were probably just that little bit smarter than the Devils. That's the one thing I can give to St. Louis on that, but they shouldn't have lost. They were dominant. Binnington made some massive saves, but they get a good comeback win against the Rangers today. They um, they beat Detroit pretty pretty comfortably. I know Vanacek had to stand on his head, but yeah, I still think these guys are super exciting to watch. Um, they're never dominated. There's never a game I've seen from these guys where I've gone, wow, they're getting smacked. They're getting absolutely smoked. Every game I'm seeing, they're the dominant team. They're the team I'm going, I don't understand how they're not 4-3, 4-0 up. So yeah, I think if they can sort of figure out this goal scoring issue that they're having, they're just not getting secondary scoring at the moment. So I don't know if that's bringing in someone. But yeah, if they can figure that scoring out, especially with Andre Palat back, I think they get Bastian and Marino back probably in a week or so. Um, so yeah, I think they're primed, and they're doing a lot of things right. They've just got to figure that scoring section out.
Yeah, I agree. Alrighty, on to my pick number 4. It's Let me just check to see, just to make sure. All right, they do not move. It is the Tampa Bay Lightning. I could have moved them honestly because of the week they had. It's wasn't the greatest week they've had this season. Only one win out of the 3. It was somewhat of a hard week though. Uh, Winning the game against Chicago, then they go on a back-to-back against the Wild, and they lose that 5-1. But it's a back-to-back against the Wild. It's pretty unfortunate, scheduling. It kind of ruins teams. And then they lose to the Jets 4-2. But I feel like they were kind of the better team there. So yeah, I could have punished them this week. I think had to wait one more week just because of how good they've been playing up to then. I don't think they actually played bad in their losses.
No, exactly. Yeah, I agree on that. I teetered uh, a lot with it, especially a team that will probably find directly above them. I don't think that'll surprise anyone, but they also had a bad week. They've had a little bit of an iffy run. Like, given the way they've played and they haven't exactly been terrible, there's been a couple of bad games that they've had, but yeah, I still think they're playing good hockey that warrants them being in the top 5. So for me, I looked at this list and I thought, I don't think any team below them are playing better than they are right now.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Your pick 3 then.
I pick 3. Don't really need to think about this. If it was anyone else, I'd be questioning my own judgment. Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah. Another team that I felt like could have moved down just for the week they had. Shootout loss against St. Louis. They lose pretty comfortably against Kraken. But then they beat the Red Wings, but it's been the Red Wings 4-1. So on their week, I could have had them move down as well. But like you said with Tampa, it's kind of the other teams below them just need to prove a little bit more before they get above. So still
Yeah,
number
exactly.
3.
And they still take 3 points out of the week. So it's not like we're sitting here going, oh, they lost all 3 games or they took 0 points for the week. They halved the week. And we saw what Seattle did to some teams, so it's not unexpected to sort of see something like that. Um, yeah, so if they keep going like this and they keep going in that downward trajectory, yeah, teams will start to overtake them, but I'm not moving on them that early.
Yep. All right. I guess it's my number 2 then. We'll see who
Yep.
you have in number 1, as we had two different number 1s last week. At
Mhm.
number 2, I still have Carolina Hurricane. I haven't moved,
No
which
change there. Well, do you know what?
which leaves
They
a
might
positive.
have lost they might have lost 3 games this week and they might have been really poor and only picked up 1 point for the week, 2 points for the week with the win. Um, but I've got them dropping. I'm not even gonna. I might be able to pretend that they're that they're still number one, but it's just not happening. Boston just, I don't know. Anytime there's some movement on Boston or potential that there might be a new number one in town, and Boston just bounce back, and the team that takes number one just falls to shit. So I might just leave Boston there for the rest of the year, to be honest.
Yeah, interesting with Carolina though. They get a shootout win, so they draw with New Jersey. They go and lose to the Rangers 5-3. They then lose to Nashville 5-3, and then they shootout loss against Columbus 4-3. But it's just the
Yep.
shooting. It's like they outshoot New Jersey by what 19. Then they get outshot by the Rangers, but then they go and outshoot Nashville by it's just what 42, like 67 shots. I think it was
Yep.
Suarez broke a Nashville
Yep.
record, 64 saves.
Y-
Um, yeah,
They were
that
plus 77 in shot difference this week, man. Plus 77, and
y-
they go 1-3.
yeah, like they're obviously outplaying. They're doing in New Jersey. They're outplaying teams, but they're somehow
But
losing.
not, yeah, yeah.
So
It's just defensive lapses, not to mention their goaltending. You mentioned this in a video we did a few weeks ago. That was your concern. Their goaltending, and that's what's let them down this week. You look at the save percentage of their goaltenders throughout the week, and I don't think any of them were above 900. Like the Blue Jackets score 3 goals against them, um, off 18 shots.
mm,
18 shots, and they get 3 goals against them. The Rangers score 5 against them off of 31. So yeah, they weren't above 900 all week. So
yeah,
you can put 40, 50 shots against teams, but if your goaltenders aren't above 900, likelihood is you're going to lose.
yeah.
And that's what happened.
I'd say they're in the same boat with Seattle. Probably one of those teams that could be looking at a new goalie. Um,
Hmm.
Depending on how they ship out their current ones. But they're in a win now mode, and I'm not sure with the way those current goalies are playing, any of them wins them a cup, unless they
Well,
do
you've got to
A
remember,
Colorado type of run.
yeah, you've got to remember, like they do have a really good defense. That is one of their big things. And they do have Anderson to come back.
Mm,
So that's the one thing I will say for them. I'm not completely. I think Kochekov, whatever his name's been really good. And he could potentially take over Ranta's spot as backup when Anderson comes back. But that is the one thing I'll hold out is that they don't have their number one goaltender in net at the moment. When Anderson comes back, what will that look like? I think that will look a lot more comfortable in net. But yeah, it definitely is a bit of a concern at the moment, considering how many shots they're putting up and still losing.
yeah. And then on to
Okay.
Boston. I don't know what much more you say about Boston. I guess your only concern is that Pasternak's having an amazing year and it's his contract year. I think that's probably one of your only concerns, really.
Yeah,
50,
it could be their last year,
yeah,
depending on what he does. But you've got to relish what they're doing at the moment. They're top by 9 points with a
yes,
game in hand.
yeah. They win all three
Yeah.
games this week. Sure, one of them was pretty easy with the San Jose, but they beat Penguins and then they beat LA, and
Hmm.
they're not faltering. Even when they falter on ice, they're not faltering on the result, and
Hmm.
that's all mark of an amazing team. And I
Yep.
pretty much I think they're a shoe in for the playoffs. um,
Well, I couldn't see them missing now. They need about 30-ish points in 43 games.
yeah,
It would be a massive blunder
it,
if they didn't make
it'd be a
playoffs.
reverse St. Louis. So they're pretty much shoe in for the playoffs. I'm not sure what they even add to help them with the cup run. But they could definitely just go all out before the deadline, trying
Hmm.
to add things. But yeah, like every time they've been, like you said, moved out of number one. I did it with New Jersey. and then you've done it with Carolina. They've just stayed true.
out straight back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they deserve it. Like they've been phenomenal. It is scary to think that they're playing this well, and this could be their last chance at a cup.
Mm.
Like you don't look at a team who's playing this well and go, "Well, this could be the last year that they're actually a contender." Just obviously depending on what happens with Pasternak and that, but just relish it. If you're a Boston fan right now, forget about what's happening outside. Yep, hope that you can get the Pasternak deal done, but you could be looking at another cup. And if you win a cup, honestly, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if Pasternak leaves at the end of the day. You've had a great run, and you get another cup out of it before you have to go into rebuild mode. So yeah, I'd just say enjoy it for now. If you're a Boston's fan, I know like I'm not a Boston fan personally, but I've almost bought 3 Boston jerseys in the last couple of weeks alone.
Oh, he's a
Um,
bandwagoner. Here we go. He's come out and said he's a
nah,
bandwagoner.
just
No.
a bandwagoner. Nah, just I've been enjoying. I've enjoyed Bergeron for a long
Oh,
time.
same. I think it's just quality human.
Pasternak's, yeah, been fantastic. So I've just seen a couple of those guys come up and thought, why not add to the collection? Um,
Yeah. No,
and yeah,
I love
but
Bergie. I think Bergie is awesome. I love what he did with Tage Thompson. Just giving it
mhm,
when they played against each other, just a slap on the leg once, just saying, how's your partner? Because I think she was fighting cancer or something at the time. I can't remember. It was some
yeah,
sickness, and he was just asking and stuff like. He's just a quality human. I couldn't praise him enough. Pretty jealous that
hmm,
Boston have him. It's a type of player you want.
yeah, and it's kind of like I I've had some qualms with Boston over the years, but you can't. He's just a player that you can't be angry at, and I'm super glad that he's got a cup ring.
Mm.
Um, that's one of the things. He deserves it. 100%. And if he won another one before his time was done, I wouldn't argue it. Especially with the way Boston are playing this year, I could definitely see them getting another cup, and it would be well deserved for Bergeron, honestly. But yeah, if I think that's it
Yeah, I'm
for
done.
this week's video. Um, Thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, if you like the video, give it a big thumbs up. If you've got anything to say around our rankings, want to show us your own, put a comment below. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, take it easy. We'll see you then.
All right, catch you guys.